Hey guys, welcome to Oxman Garage. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more how-to videos just like this. Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to time a Gen 1 Coyote motor. That's going to cover the Mustang and the F-150 from 2011 to 2014. So why do you need to time your Coyote motor? Well, there's a few reasons. If anything in the timing components were to fail, we would need to replace these and then retime the motor. The phasers, if you need to take the head off for any reason, for a leaky gasket, or if you need to get to the oil pump, maybe you're putting some performance oil pump gears in the oil pump, or changing out the sprocket for a higher performance sprocket as well. So anytime we're taking the engine apart and putting it back together, we need to retime the engine. Alright, so right now we see a bare long block, right? So there's no timing cover, valve covers, intake, or water pump, obviously. So this is what you would see in your engine bay, or if you had this on an engine stand. So now we need to remove the timing components because we got to get to the oil pump or take the head off, a camshaft, the phaser, something that was damaged that needs to be replaced. So what we want to do is we want the crankshaft keyway to be in the 12 o'clock position. So you're going to grab your Ford special tool, and I'll put a link in the description of where you can find this. So we're going to put that on there, and we're going to rotate there you go, 12 o'clock position. Alright, so now you want to make sure that the QR code data matrix little symbols right here are facing up. I know these camshafts are a little dirty, but this is on the right side of the head. You want to make sure that both of those are facing up. Alright, so if you don't have the QR codes facing up, you want to go ahead and rotate it one more time in the 12 o'clock position so that you see those QR code data matrix little symbols on the top of the camshafts. Alright, so now we're going to be disassembling the right side of the timing components over here. So we're going to remove the tensioner, and these are 8mm bolts right here. And after we remove that, it's going to bring slack on the chain. You're going to remove this pivoting tensioner arm here, and then you're going to remove this stationary arm. So these are all going to be 8mm bolts. Now if you need to get some slack in the chain, go ahead and move the crankshaft a little bit, but return it back to the 12 o'clock position just to get that arm off if you need be. Okay, now go ahead and remove this chain. Alright, so next we're going to remove these 6 phaser bolts. These are a 12mm 12-point socket. Alright, so now we want to remove both of the intake and exhaust phasers with the secondary chain. And to do that, we want to press down on the secondary tensioner right here. So we just want to move it just like that and then start working it off. This is going to be a little stubborn. Alright, so now we want to rotate the keyway into the 9 o'clock position. So using our special tool and some leverage, go ahead and rotate the engine into the 9 o'clock position right there. Alright, so now we're going to remove the left side tensioner, and then the pivoting tensioner arm, and then the stationary arm, and these are all 8mm bolts. All right, now go ahead and take your chain off. And now you can take your sprocket off. All right, so now I'm going to be removing the 6 phaser bolts once again, just like on the other side. This is the same 10 millimeter 12-point socket. I'm using the MMR wrench to hold the flats of the cams to keep them stationary while I loosen these bolts. Alright, so now I'm going to be removing the intake and exhaust phasers on the left side, the driver side. So remember, you want to depress this secondary tensioner, give it a 90-degree twist, and then take these guys off with just a little bit of help on both sides. Slide right off. Need a little bit more help. All right, so now we have access to the oil pump. We can take the camshafts off. We can take the heads off if we need to repair any of the valve train components with the camshafts or the gaskets underneath the head. You can see that at one point the head was replaced on this engine right here. So now you have access to all these areas if you have to make that repair. All right, so at this time, I'm going to take the camshafts off on both sides of the heads. These cam caps right here are all a 8 millimeter socket, and you just want to break these loose before using a impact. Alright, so we got the camshafts out, and I'm just inspecting the lash adjusters and the springs and the rocker followers. Just checking out everything on this motor before I put everything back together. Alright, so at this time we're going to put the camshafts back on, but before we do that, if you're ever going to take your lash adjusters or rocker followers, make sure they're in the same exact place when you remove them, and make sure you soak them in 5W20 motor oil for a good few hours before you reassemble everything. And before you put your camshafts back on, and we're going to start on the left side, by the way, you want to make sure you oil up all of the cam journals on the head and on the cam caps. And you can use assembly lube if you want to, but fresh motor oil will work just as well. Alright, so now that we have the camshafts on, you're going to see the face of the camshaft here. We want to align our D slots on the intake and exhaust in this orientation. So on the intake, if you're looking at a flat plane like this, this is kind of like in the 7 o'clock position here, and then on the exhaust is like in the 11 o'clock position right here. So if you check out this graphic that's from the Ford service manual, you want your camshafts to look like this before we tighten the cam caps. Alright, so now we're going to be installing all the cam caps. We're going to start with the single ones first. Okay, then you want to install the mega cap. Okay, so now we're going to be installing the bolts, and remember these are torque to yield, they're a one-time use, so anytime you take these cam caps off, you need to have brand new bolts. Alright, so now that I have the bolts in, I'm just going to run them down finger tight with my impact. You don't want to over tighten these because we want to torque these down into 2 stages. So I'm just going to run these down finger tight, and then I'm going to torque them down. And just a quick tip on the correct orientation of all the cam caps. Remember that all of these cam caps have a semicircle on the bottom, this little curve, that needs to be facing down. And then all of the cam caps are numbered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then lastly, you'll see a little arrow. All the arrows are pointing towards the front of the engine. And then on the bottom side, you'll see that there's a large circle here and a small circle, so you really can't install these backwards. All right, so now we want to torque these cam cap bolts down in 2 stages. The first stage is we're going to tighten them to 53 inch-pounds, and then we're going to go an additional 45 degrees. And if you see this graphic right here, this is the torque sequence of which you have to tighten all of the cam cap bolts. If you haven't done so already, you can go ahead and replace these camshaft filters right here with a brand new one. Just use like a little pick to get it out and put it back in, and then make sure it's seated all the way back. Alright, so at this time we're going to reinstall the secondary timing chain onto both of the phasers. And this one right here with the gear, this is your exhaust side, and then the one without a gear is the one that's on your intake side. So if you can see on the exhaust side, there's a colored link, just one, that's going to get this timing mark right here. And then the intake side, you'll see the 2 colored links. It's going to go right in the middle with that timing link. So you will now want to reinstall this on the camshafts on the left side. And while we're installing this, you want to slip the chain over the tensioner and make sure it's straight on. Alright, so once you got it fully seated, go ahead and turn this secondary tensioner pad so down it's straight on with the chain. Also, once you have these on, you want to make sure that these holes right here line up with the holes that's on the camshafts. If you need to slightly move the camshaft a little bit so that those bolt holes line up, then you're okay. You just want to make sure that this left timing mark is kind of like in the 11:30, 11 o'clock position right here. Alright, so now you want to install your phaser bolts or your VCT bolts, and these are going to be torqued down in 2 phases. So this is going to be 133 inch-pounds and then an additional 90 degrees. And remember, these are torque to yield bolts. You cannot reuse these. You have to buy new ones. Alright, so now we're going to install the crank sprocket and the left timing chain. So here's the timing chain. We're going to see one colored link here and then another colored link on the bottom. We want to match that up with the L here and then the timing mark down here. Alright, so now we're going to install the stationary guide. There's 2 pins right here that they need to go on, just like that. Make sure it's lined up on the chain. And then there is a 8mm bolt that goes right here. And this gets torqued down to 89 inch-pounds. Alright, so now we're installing the pivoting guide. And if you need to move the crankshaft just a little bit to get slack in the chain to install this, just like that. All right, so this is a little step that I like to do. I like to keep tension on the chain before I put the tensioner on. This is a ratcheting clamp, and what this is going to do is it's going to have tension on the chain so that I don't lose my timing marks as I install the chain tensioner. All right, so next you want to compress your chain tensioner, and I'm not a big fan of these. These are only oil pressurized. I really recommend the ratcheting, like the Boss 302 chain tensioners, where there's a little ratchet on it and it'll keep that chain tension progress. But you want to put this in a vise, but I'm using a ratcheting clamp, and you want to compress this all the way down. It's going to fart. And then you want to put a pin going through this hole onto the other side. And then once you release, it's going to keep that cylinder plunger depressed all the way. And now you want to reinstall this with the 2 bolts, and it's going to be 89 inch-pounds. Okay, so once you have that installed, go ahead and release your pin. And now you have tension on that chain. And then I'm going to release this ratcheting clamp now. And now we have tension on that chain. And let's check our timing marks. Got the timing mark here and the timing mark on the L up here. So this side for the left side head is done. All right, so now we want to rotate the crankshaft into the 12 o'clock position. All right, so now we're installing the camshafts on the right side. All right, so now we're going to repeat the same process for the right side. We're going to put our small ones on first. Make sure they're in the correct orientation. All right, so once we've run these bolts down finger tight, it's going to be the same thing on the other side. You want to do the same torque procedure, the 2 stages. So if you want to reference earlier in the video to see that torque sequence for all the bolts on the cam caps. All right, so once we have our camshafts on and our cam cap bolts are all torqued to spec, we want to make sure the face of the cams are in their correct orientation. So on the exhaust side, this D slot is kind of in the 6 o'clock position. And then on the intake side, this is kind of at the 1 o'clock position. So here's a graphic right here of what the face of your camshafts need to look like with the D slots. All right, so now we are going to install the phasers. And remember, just like the other side, on the exhaust gear with this ridge right here, this is going to get the 1 colored link, and on the intake, it's going to get the 2 colored links right in the middle. So now we're going to install this. Remember to slip the chain over the guide. This is always tricky, so you got to just take your time with this. Okay, and then once you got it on there, go ahead and flip this tensioner pad so that it's in line with the secondary chain. All right, so next you want to install your phaser bolts or your VCT bolts, and it's the same torque procedure as before. Just go back on the video to reference the torque procedure. All right, so now we want to install our primary chain, and you'll see the timing mark R right here. Make sure that it matches. And then also on the crank sprocket. Alright, so now we have our stationary guide. He's going to go right here on the 2 pins, and then this bolt is 89 inch-pounds. Alright, the next is the pivoting guide right here. It's going to go right on that pin. Just like that. And then as before, I like to make sure this chain is nice and tight before I install the chain tensioner. And then remember, these are all 8mm bolts and 89 inch-pounds. And pull our pin. Alright, so we just want to verify all our timing marks. So you can see in the R right there, that colored link matches. And that colored link matches there. And on the inside there, it matches. And then right there with the L on that side. So this is all timed, and she is ready to go. Alright guys, gonna wrap up this video. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more how-to videos just like this one. So just a couple of things before we wrap up the video. One, I do not like these oil pressurized chain tensioners. I really like the ratcheting ones. You can find those on the Boss 302 and I believe the Voodoo and the Predator motor as well. The second thing is, if you need to get slack in the chain, you can move the crankshaft to make slack in the chain. Just make sure you return it back to its original position. Use that Ford special tool. I have a link in the description where you can find that tool. Same thing with the camshafts. You can use that special tool from MMR. I'll put a link in the description for that tool as well, or you can use a crescent wrench if you need to move the flats of the camshafts to seat the phasers so you can line up these phaser bolts. Just make sure the timing marks are correct as I showed you in the video. So this is going to wrap up the video, guys. If you have any comments or questions, please comment down below. I'll answer them the best I can. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. This is Josh from Oxman Garage.